Hello and welcome to the 313 Connect podcast on the Legend Sports YouTube channel. We're joined by at Sean Halfcourt, at Smoke Souls NBA. Boys, we just witnessed a pretty good NBA draft. There was a lot of good stuff that happened in there. Pistons only with one pick. A lot of people had their panties in a bunch because they thought the Pistons should have packaged up a lot of second-round picks to move up. I mean, we can talk more about that in a little bit. But the premise of today, guys, is going to be a something or nothing episode. So there's going to be a few different topics we talk about. And even if we don't have them on the agenda, you guys can bring them up and ask them like as you think of them. The first thing I want to talk about, Pistons selecting Chaz Lanier with the 37th pick. Boys, let's start with Sean. Is that something or is that nothing?
It's something. Chaz Lanier, by all accounts, is someone that the Pistons were blown away by. It sounds like they were trying to move up into the first round. I'm not sure if it was to draft Chaz Lanier up there or if it was to get someone else, but this is a guy that, according to Trajan, that they were blown away with all throughout the process. And if you watch the way that he plays and you look at his tape, very Malik Beasley-esque in the way that he likes to shoot the basketball, move off of screens. He's a very effective movement shooter. He's 6'5" with a 6'9" wingspan. He was a really good player in his year at Tennessee, grew a lot throughout college. So the thing that's going to be interesting to me when talking about like where he fits in the rotation is what can he do defensively? That's kind of the one thing or the knock, so to speak, on him right now. And how does this affect Marcus Sasser's place on the roster and the rotation going forward? Because if you look at Sasser's salary going forward, for this season, the Pistons will owe him $2.8 million. So they'll probably, I'd imagine, pick that up and move on with Marcus Sasser. The following season, that goes up to 5.1. So you get someone in Lanier who's potentially cheaper, longer, and maybe even a better shooter at the same position. So I'm interested to see how that affects things. But nonetheless, for the 37th pick, I think the Pistons actually have a legitimate chance to have gotten a rotation player.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna say it's something. I think what I like the most about this draft pick is the Pistons have really found their identity. Like team building wise, Trajan is targeting shooters that can help space the floor for Cade. We've seen that in free agency last year and in the draft this year. So, and a kid that got that got that much better that fast in college, like well, not that fast, but he had to go through the grinders and he worked for 3 years. That's how Florida finally got a chance. And then last year at Tennessee kind of showed what he could do on the national stage. A guy like that, you like to imagine that his handle can get a little bit better coming off those pin downs because he's already super efficient and super effective, like coming off curls and being a movement shooter. So that obviously fits in the JB Bickerstaff offense. The other side of the ball is a question mark, but all rookies struggle on defense. So we will see. We will see how he holds up on that end. But yeah, he looks like a legit shooter, one of the best shooters in the draft, and the Pistons definitely have a direction. You don't have to look at the Pistons and kind of wonder what are they doing? Like exactly what they're trying to do. Spacing, shooting, and connected guys around Cade.
Yeah, and I pulled up something that's really important to me when it comes to Chaz Lanier and when it comes to second round picks. The recent trend has been going for the older guys, the guys who have played for a few years, have been able to gain some of that consistency and really show what they really are going to be able to commit day one at the NBA level. There's a lot of awards here. And I feel like if you're a pretty good college athlete, you're going to get a lot of these. But there's a lot of little things that he was able to pick up, a lot of little accolades here. And I made a tweet earlier where, to me, it doesn't seem like he is just going to be a G League guy. And I think a lot of people are saying, oh, whoop-de-doo, a 37th pick. Yeah, he's going to be in the G League. He might be really good in there for a few years. I don't think you take a guy who played, 5 years in college just to go sit in the G League, especially when he has a game that can fit really well with Cade. Like, you guys have both hit that on the head. The fit is there. So they didn't draft potentially for potential. They could have gone in a lot of different directions if they were to say, we can take this one guy and we think he could project to be something like this. They know what they're getting with him. And if he comes in and shows exactly what he's been doing, that's a really good baseline, because that's something that he will excel in the role, and he's going to be even better because of the location with Cade Cunningham and that fit overall.
Yeah, the biggest win is you got another shooter. You got someone who can space the floor and who can take take things for Kate Cunningham and make his life a lot easier. This is really solid Malik Beasley insurance in the long term. And, especially just talking about guys who, just fit the overall scheme and philosophy of the way that Troy Weaver likes to build his roster. He wants optionality. He wants, flexibility. He wants, versatility, and he certainly fits that bill. Like if you're going to have a chance to get a guy that can actually play in the second round, they have to have the skill sets that Lanier has. And he broke the record for Tennessee, I believe, in single season 3-point shooting last year too. And I posted on Twitter, if you go back and watch some of his highlights from the tournament, dude was lights out.
Yeah.
I also wonder,
go ahead, Brennan.
I know a lot of Pistons fans were kind of like just poo-pooing the 37th overall pick, but who did they imagine that they were supposed to get at that pick? Like who was the guy?
I think people wanted to trade up. I think there was a lot of people that went, or I'd have to look directly at it, but Fleming, who went 31, a lot of people were guns ho to trying to move up for that. Is it worth getting rid of some of your second round picks? And not to change the conversation, we can get right back to it, but the Pistons have a pretty good wealth of second round picks in the future. And I just don't want to waste them now when you can get a guy who fit really well.
Well, and now that there's a hard salary cap, you need to hit in the second round. Of the 12 active rotation players in the playoffs of the Thunder, 5 of them were either drafted in the second round or were undrafted altogether. So if you want to talk about being an elite roster construction team in this modern salary cap, you have to maximize your second round picks. And we saw teams like Orlando trade 5 second round picks to move up to the 32nd or 33rd pick in the second round. And don't get me wrong, if you think the guy is going to be special, then by all means, but you're not normally getting someone who's quote unquote special in the second round. They're out there, they're expectations, but they're not the rule.
Yeah. I really like what the Cavs did as well. They picked a guy who everyone projected to go early in the past draft. And I think even the year before that, and maybe even in this one, Tyrese Proctor from Duke, really solid player there, goes into a situation where there's no question that the Cavaliers have kind of been looking at trading Garland. And I'm not trying to say Tyrese Proctor can come in and fill that role and fill that right away, but look at who they're going to lose in free agency. So Tyrese Proctor can come right in. He's an older prospect who's had a lot of different projections over the past couple years, and he's going to be able to go in and probably provide some decent minutes. I'm not going to say he's going to be a star. Can he play 15 minutes a night easily? I think so.
Yeah, I like Proctor. That's a good shot. That's a good shot. I like Proctor.
Even saw Phoenix too. They traded a lot of second round picks just to be able to move up and get depth. And this is a solid draft. Don't get me wrong, but as you move into the future, as we see NIL kind of force players to stay in school longer, I think you're only going to see the depth of the draft improve over time. So I honestly don't hate the fact that Trajan, he acknowledged, we tried moving up. We explored moving into the first round, but the price is as high as it's ever been, according to him. And not to completely already change topics and tease a future thing, but there's a certain franchise that gave up a hell of a lot for something that might not have been worth it.
Yeah. Sean, that was the perfect transition into there. We're going to be moving into, are the former Pistons execs ruining the Pelicans' future? And I guess I was pretty direct in what I said. Former Pistons execs ruin Pelicans' future. We can debate that one. I think that is definitely something to look at because they gave away a pick in a loaded draft class. Absolutely loaded. You could have potentially given Atlanta the number 1 pick next year. I don't know what they were thinking. Troy Weaver loves his centers. I'm not going to keep rambling.
I would bet anything in my life savings that whatever pick Atlanta will get next year out of this trade will be above number 13. And I believe it was Kuka Heel who said it on Twitter, and it really rang so true. During Troy Weaver's tenure, I remember a lot of times saying, well, it seems like a steep price, but if you love the player, you go and get the player. And I think that's, exactly what a lot of people in New Orleans have been saying. It's well, sure, but this situation, like when you look at these two picks in particular from Milwaukee and New Orleans, whichever is the worst between the two, you have New Orleans, they're not going to be a good team in a loaded Western Conference. And then Milwaukee is essentially in a gap year. Good luck for them, to be able to contend and truly do anything. And like, sure, Patrick Queen is like a tantalizing prospect. And I know Troy Weaver has a lot of faith in him, but that is just abhorrent roster management. And I just, at a certain point, you got to just really see, like, is the player really worth the squeeze? And I just, unless he's a multi-time all-star and like that pick is like not even that good next year, like the stars really have to align for this to work out for New Orleans. And I just don't think they do.
Brennan, I did want to ask though, have you been able to watch much of Queen's tape? Like his kind of scoring, because the fit next to Zion, from what I've seen, is a little scary. He can handle the ball a little bit, but I feel like you need an lights out shooter.
Yeah, that is not his game. He is definitely like a post scorer somebody who will need the ball and will be in the lane where Zion likes to operate too. I think with Queen, offensively, I think he could be fine. But I also think you have to have a team that's willing to kind of run through him for him to really play at his best. And will the Pelicans do that now that they have Jordan Poole and Zion? I don't know. Right. Now, defensively is where I'm kind of concerned about Queen, though. I don't think he'll be able to be a versatile five that can kind of switch out, that can kind of protect the rim. I don't know what his best pick and roll coverage is. Maybe it's playing at the level, but I think that he is kind of fooled
Eric
in the
Queen,
pick
by
and
the way,
roll.
my apologies.
Yeah. I think that he's somebody that will probably get picked on in the long term too. So I don't know. But if he turns into an offensive monster, maybe the deal is worth it. But again, he has to become like elite for that deal to kind of manifest it in a positive light. But um, as a prospect, I'm just so concerned about defense. I don't like my centers not being able to guard personally.
Yeah, and the crazy thing for me is you're building this kind of offensive lineup, but you're also signaling that you're willing to get rid of Herb Jones. You're willing to get rid of Trey Murphy. What's the point? Because if you're trading away your next year pick, aren't you hoping to be decent? So why are you trying to get rid of kind of that foundation there?
And to me, like, this is like when I think about, like, to me, they just drafted another Zion. Like, if you looked at like if you look at like what the prospect is and who he is as a player, like either this is Zion insurance or this is just straight up the signal of we're looking to rebuild or reposition and move on from Zion. Because like, to me, like I just, with those types of skill sets, if he's not necessarily a floor spacer, if he's not necessarily like a great defender, to me, it doesn't really sound like he has skill sets that necessarily like complement a Zion Williamson. It seems like he has a skill set that like really clashes and is redundant, and they both need similar things to succeed.
Maybe you do think about moving Zion though. I know that his value is probably at the lowest it's ever been the last few years. So you probably want to get 60 plus games before you move him to actually get something. But maybe you are tired of the Zion circus.
Here's a quick quotable from NBA.com about Derek Queen. It's like having a 6'11" point guard. We can ISO, we can post, we can run offense through him. He knows every play from every possession. Tell me the last 6'11" guy in college who could do that. So he's essentially a taller Zion with the way he likes to play. Like when Zion's at his best, it's point Zion.
Right.
Yeah, that's a tough situation for them. And I mean, I feel like I gave them the Pelicans the benefit of the doubt when they hired Dumars and then they brought in Weaver, because it felt like they were able to almost correct the weaknesses of each other.
Yep.
The free agent aspect versus the drafting scouting aspect. But this has Weaver written on it because, I mean, this is kind of the same situation. This is more of an issue than when we traded away a pick to, get Isaiah Stewart? But either way, that locked us up with our first round picks going forward. So either way, what he did was affect the team's future in a very serious way.
Well, and here's another thing as well. The other prospect that they drafted at number 7, Jeremiah Fears. He looks like he's like a really solid guard prospect, to be really explosive, pretty high upside swing pick, I would say. Does he not share a lot of characteristics to Jordan Poole, who they just traded for? Which, by the way, who else is in that deal to come to New Orleans other than Sadiq Bey to reunite with Troy Weaver in the 3rd location?
Yeah.
That's Troy guy, man.
Yep.
You can't quit the 50-point game.
Well, and then after the draft, there were a lot of DMV connections going to New Orleans with the summer league teams and the training camp, things like that. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but either way, the Pelicans, you're going to see a lot of Washington connections or greater DC area connections. Guys, we only have a little bit of time left, and I know this one's going to be a shorter episode, but I do want to get into, is this something or nothing? The Nas Reed huge extension. And first off, I thought it was huge, but when I was first looking at it, like, that's a big deal. That's a lot of money going there. $25 million a year is not what I expected, because when you're thinking of what Nas Reed can do, we were just talking about a big guy who kind of plays like a point guard, but Nas Reed can do step backs. He can cross people up. I was expecting in the 30s, if I'm being completely honest. You get a little bit of a discount staying with Minnesota. They have to have some sort of commitment to you, and they have to have some sort of plan for you to feel like you can get that comfortably. Are you guys surprised? Because this seems like almost, I don't know, this is something or a nothing.
I think it's obviously something, him staying in Minnesota and, Pistons and other teams that were interested kind of losing out. So it's something in that regard. But I think that, that the price tag is just kind of reflective of the market these days, like where the NBA is going. With the second apron, everybody being so afraid to kind of get into that. I mean, of course, Nas has game offensively. He can score, dribble, passing, dribble and shoot. Passing is okay for, like, positional passing is okay. His positional defense is okay. But for me, it kind of makes sense that a guy that's not a flat out two-way player isn't getting in the 30s. Like, hopefully the market can correct itself and only, like, guys that are elite on both sides, or like super elite at one thing on offense. Like, Nas Reed is an elite shooter, but, like, I don't know. We saw in the playoffs he kind of faded, so I don't know. Like, when the moments get big, is he worth like 35 or 32, 33 like we kind of thought over the course of the season? I think the playoffs kind of set his market for him and put him in that 25 range, and he got the long-term bag being in Minnesota for 5 years, so that's obviously huge for them. We'll see what happens with Julius Randle on their end, but that is something that Nas got locked in on a lot of fronts.
Yeah. For the Pistons side, this is definitely not nothing at all. This is someone that was probably one of your top, if not your top, get in the offseason as far as a, prospect or, like a free agent to bring into the fold. He's a great player. Nas Reed and that alleged DM with a fan came out and said he was going to get 100 mil this offseason. He got 100 mil. So, congratulations to him. But, like, from the perspective of Detroit, it almost like makes your options just even more limited. Like, now it almost just seems like, kind of like what we've been thinking for the last week or two now, of Santi Aldama kind of being the most realistic option, with him being a restricted free agent. Even then, Memphis can still decide what his future is, because they can match whatever offer comes in. And, they still, they just cleared some space with going out and trading Desmond Bane. But I think if you're the Pistons, like, obviously, yeah, you would have loved to see this type of guy alongside of Cade Cunningham, but at the same light, that would have made things a little complicated as well. So it's another one of those guys that you miss on. But from Minnesota's perspective, like, once Kevin Durant was off the table, there was no world they could let Nas Reed leave. And now they still have to figure out the long-term futures for Julius Randle. They still have to figure out at some point what's going to happen with Dante DiVincenzo beyond next year. They have to figure out what's going on with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He's probably gone. So not all sunshine and lollipops, even with that contract signed, but he's a huge part of them being competitive going forward. So,
yeah. You brought up Nickeil Alexander-Walker. One rumored target is Atlanta, and they're doing a lot. They have a lot of ammunition. They're building a team that's going to be able to jump up in the East. I don't know how far. One thing I also wanted to bring up about the Pistons, I wanted to ask you guys is because of the way free agency is playing out, in with Schroeder most likely gone, Pistons are going to have a lot of open money and they're going to be able to stay flexible. And we've talked about the benefits of potentially waiting for the trade deadline. But does this potentially signal that they're really gunning for extensions for Ivy and Duren? And a lot of people have their opinions on what way they're going to go with that. But this kind of, if we're losing free agents, not really bringing anything in, I feel like if we're able to lock those guys in, that's going to make it so a lot of our future money goes to Ivy and Duren and then Asar instead of a lot of future money going into Schroeder, going into Tim Hardaway Jr. Not that that would be a lot anyways. Does that make any sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know how much it doesn't necessarily have a huge impact on this year's team, just since you're technically it doesn't necessarily like affect into this year's salary. But when you're talking about like long-term planning,
Yes.
it definitely does allow them to, have a little bit more certainty and not have as much conflict when it goes into like some of those like future transactions. Like, who knows? Does this open the door for Detroit to bring back Tim Hardaway on a short-term deal that's like pretty tradable, that's like pretty team friendly? I think that like is certainly like a possibility. I'm not sure if that's something they're like, fully going to do, but it's certainly on the table. I think for Schroeder, it's like it was always going to be hard to bring him back just because there are teams that do need quality starting point guard play. And whether it's Dallas, whether it's Sacramento, I just think both places, even though I personally would never go to Sacramento, it's probably where you can make the most money. It's probably where you can assure the most playing time. So, that just makes a lot of sense. All reports still continue to be that Malik Beasley in Detroit are really eager to get an extension done there. So yeah, at the very least, it gives you some flexibility, because even if you go get Aldama, I don't think you're spending $25 million a year to do that. I think 20 is probably the cap there.
Yeah, I would agree. 20 is probably his ceiling, and if you go higher than that, Memphis might just, match it because they really don't have a lot going right now after trading Bane, like young player wise. Like, obviously they still have Jaren and Ja, but Aldama is another young versatile player that they might want to match. But yeah, I don't see it going any higher than 20 either. That would be the opposite of the market resetting itself. Like a guy like Aldama, if he was to go for like 25, the same as Nas Reed, that would be kind of crazy.
Yeah, I don't see him going for that much. And I think if I was underwhelmed by what Nas Reed signed for, I mean, Aldama, 13 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, good numbers, but not one of those guys who's going to be paid the absolute premium. I honestly feel like it's going to be anywhere from the, I don't know, like 13 to 18 range. I feel like something in there. It's going to be cheaper than we expect, but at the same time, if it's cheaper than we expect, why wouldn't Memphis just keep him unless they're trying to go in a different direction and they know they can get something in a sign and trade that makes sense?
Yeah, I think for them it would make a lot of sense to do a sign and trade, get some assets in return. Also, they're not going to be any competitive anytime soon in the West. And I think the sooner they come to terms with that, the sooner that they can make some moves to actually benefit the team and put them in a better position.
If you get rid of Bane, I mean, he was probably one of the most important pieces there. Like, you have Jaren Jackson, you have John Morant, but what Bane brings you, you can't go into an Eastern or a Western Conference playoff matchup and feel good without him. Guys, we don't have too much time left, but I do want to get into one more thing. Sean, you were the one who brought this one up. Is the Myles Turner domino something or nothing?
Yeah, so I think that this is not. I think it's most likely nothing. However, I think that and I'm here to hear your thoughts too, Brennan. After Tyrese tore his Achilles in the finals, that changed a lot to me about their outlook in the long run. It to me, if I was at least the general manager of the Pacers, I would have more pause in giving someone a long-term extension when one of those years is guaranteed to not have Tyrese Halliburton. And Myles Turner is going to be, I believe he's going to be either 30 or 31 at the beginning of next season. And you're already going to be, in like almost halfway through that deal by the time, Tyrese Halliburton comes back. So to me, if I'm thinking about the Pacers, like, this is a team that is supposed to be paying the luxury tax for the first time in 20 years. Are you really going to rush to continue to pay the luxury tax when you're not making the finals next year? So that's at least 1 year where you're paying the tax, where it's just not going to lead to anything. Personally, don't really know if it makes a lot of sense for Indiana to still move forward with Myles Turner, see if they can maybe trade for someone else and almost kind of like what like the Celtics are doing with Tatum, like pivot, take a year, like a gap year, get some assets and then retool later when it's time to contend. But I just don't think the Pacers bringing back Turner makes a ton of sense, but I still think they probably do it.
Yeah, especially how relationships matter so much in the league. Like, we all wanted to kind of be just business as usual, but he's been there since Tim Duncan was on the Spurs and stuff. So he is kind of like that Indiana figure. But yeah, in the finals, they honestly look better with Obi Toppin and Siakam being the 4 and the 5 at a lot of times. Like it was points in the series where we're like, why is Obi Toppin not in the game and why is Turner in the game? And if somebody is going to get paid $35 million, that should never be a question. So, yeah, if I was the owner, relationships aside, I would not offer Myles Turner kind of what he's looking for because of Halliburton being out, because of the gap here, because of just his inability to kind of do stuff in the biggest moment. Maybe OKC was a bad matchup, which, that was just a great team. So I could just be understanding how bad of a matchup that was. But like I said, it was just times where it's like, put Siakam at the 5 and let's just do what we do. Let's go small and try to run,
Yeah,
So, yeah, go ahead,
yeah,
Legend.
I was just gonna say, like, yes, it could be it's considered a tough matchup, but he still shot 16% on open threes. So it's a lot of the factor of him versus, I mean, the matchup there. And guys, what I've been reading is, I mean, most likely they're going to get a deal done quickly. I mean, these are from credible sources, and it's like we're all bringing up, like Sean, Brennan, you guys have brought up fantastic points, but I mean, it looks like they're going to get something done. And to me, that doesn't make too much sense but like, at the same time, if you have Siakam, you can't waste it. And I feel like that's the same thing when you have Jaylen Brown and the Celtics. You can't waste it because you're paying those guys a ton of money.
Yeah. I think another thing that to factor in as well is why they might be a little bit more comfortable paying the luxury tax is the owners of the Indiana Pacers also own a team called the Indiana Fever. And the Indiana Fever, I'm not sure if you guys know, there's a player named Caitlin Clark who is kind of rising up the rankings a little bit. I think their pockets in their revenue between the two teams is up exponentially. Like I think they like they were doing what I think they were doing just fine before, just with the Pacers alone. With the Fever, they were probably losing money, but probably not very much. Now they literally made back Caitlin Clark's contract in the first 20 minutes of her being drafted. Like that's a real statistic. So I think that they are going to be just fine with paying in the luxury tax if it means that there's going to be more excitement, because that will pay in dividends and in dollars. So to me, that doesn't necessarily surprise me massively. I just don't agree with it.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And with Halliburton going down, kind of off topic a little bit, but I think it will be cool to see Andrew Nembhard kind of rock out as the primary ball handler a little bit. So I think his upside is a little bit higher than what he's shown. I don't think he can be a superstar. Not the Jalen Brunson leap, but I think he can be a little bit better than what we've seen. So we'll see that next year.
Yeah. Anytime you give a guy the ball more, especially who has been really good in clutch situations, you're going to see some good stuff from him.
Yep.
For sure.
Real quick, boys, before we go, one cool thing I just saw on Twitter. Tonight is Fever versus Dallas Wings in Dallas tonight. And Cooper Flagg is in attendance, but another person that's in attendance is Cade Cunningham, pictured here linking up with Micah Parsons, right at the game, backstage, kind of in the arena. So seeing two megastars of their sport, two megastars of Dallas linking up. I thought that was pretty cool.
And repping the WNBA with his daughter.
Super dope. I wish we could have got Kaylin versus Paige tonight, but we'll get it eventually, man. It's gonna be a great matchup. I like both of them, so that would be a great matchup sooner than later.
To have Paige, Caitlin, Cade, and Cooper all under the same roof. That's dope.
It should be super me dope.
There too. It should be me.
Real quick, one funny comment I saw from Joe B. Before this draft, they finally asked can the player we draft play at the same time as Cade Cunningham and Asar Thompson, our two most impactful players? The answer is yes, they can, because I am very excited for Lanier. And like I said, you're not going to bring that guy in just to rot in the G League. So, boys, you guys have any other points?
I think this is the exciting time of the year, man. Now that we're past the draft, free agency, it feels like it's a decent ways away. We are 48 hours away, gentlemen. It starts on Monday.
I did not even.
That is crazy.
48?
NBA moves so fast, man. NBA always got something cooking.
Maybe just over 48, but yeah, like it literally, like free agency is on Monday.
Boys, I could have thought it was weeks away because I've been really into NFL shit right now, and I would have thought that things are weeks apart. They're spread out. 48 hours.
Oh, it's
NBA
like right
just keep going,
now,
man.
Leggy. Like
keep going.
pretty much a week. Like there is a very good chance the next time we record together, we will know exactly who the opening night roster will be, or at least have a very good inkling.
Yeah. Wow. Let's keep a page on some of that, because maybe if there's something crazy, we can do some emergency late night recording. But boys, this has been a really fun time. And like I mentioned, we have to cut this one short. I'm on baby duty yet again. Baby's doing great.
Leggy doing the selfish deed of being a father and loving and caring for his family. What a piece of trash.
Yeah, Brennan's joining that club pretty soon, so he's joining those ranks. But boys, this was a really fun time, and like you said, Sean, free agency coming up. I'm excited to chop that up with you all, and anybody who's watching right now, anyone who's watching after the fact. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll talk to you guys later.